All right, class. You can see that I have with me Jay Tate. And Jay was with the Montgomery Advertiser. Now he's with AuburnSports.
Correct.
And and he has been, how many years have you been?
20 years here at Auburn.
20 years.
Going into my 21st season at Auburn, which is, I thought I'd be here too, at most. And
stop on the way.
You know, I actually made a deal with my daughter, who's now 16, that I would gnaw on my own foot. I mean, I'm talking like gnaw, if I was still here when she was 16.
Have you gnawed?
I have not gnawed, but we're going to do this soon. I owe it to her and to myself.
Because I was thinking, because we can digress here. I remember a certain person on Auburn social media who said he would eat his hat if something happened.
Yeah.
Wasn't that about a year ago? And he still hasn't eaten his hat.
Well, he's a fake person. He doesn't say who he is.
Yeah.
On the internet.
If y'all know who we're talking about.
Oh.
I wish we met as a class, because then we could turn this off and say we know.
So now you've got some students that maybe I have interviewed.
Yes.
All right.
We have some, and maybe a lot of your readers as well.
Oh.
So.
Okay. Well, that'd be sweet.
And on the class, actually, I know, and y'all know that Marlon Davidson, you have talked to, Bryce Brown.
Oh yeah.
Jeremy Johnson, whom you have not met.
Right.
But want to.
I don't do baseball.
And Kendall Moss on the gymnastics team. But so that they might be watching. They can under their discussion post they can comment. All right.
Appreciate you, Brian.
So, first question then, because what we're looking at through this conversation is how the print media side, the written word, has changed. And I know it's merged with multimedia, but we're really starting from print, and that's a lot of what we're going to look at. And so describe, was this your first job?
No.
Okay, what was your first job like in terms of how you generated content?
Right, so my first real job was at a small weekly newspaper. Well, no, it was daily. It was 5 days a week in Winchester, Kentucky, which is like, I don't know, kind of a suburb of Lexington. And I wrote about old people doing Tai Chi and like big tomatoes and weather sirens and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I did. And the way that I got story ideas is because my editor told me to go out and do it.
And you basically wrote it and it printed. Did y'all have a website?
Yeah, kind of.
Right, yeah. Just dumped it
It was in 97, so I was just getting started. There was no emphasis about digital though.
So basically you were on a daily newspaper schedule. You came in, wrote, it appeared the next day.
Exactly.
And so the deadline was just in time to get in. You didn't worry about other people posting things?
Never.
Right.
That was somebody else's job. So I would write about these tomatoes. It was an afternoon paper. This doesn't even exist anymore, I don't think.
My goodness.
But so I would come in about 6 a.m., and then I would gather news until about noon. I think our deadline was like maybe 1. And so, by that time you'd have to paginate it and get it out by about 1:30. Then it would be in the houses by 3 or 4 o'clock. It's kind of how it worked. It was a wonderful life because
it was.
I go in at 6, I'm done at 2 or 3, and that's it for the day.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to do. That's the way I thought it was going to be.
I think that's the way we all thought it was going to be.
And that's not.
And it's not. Well, first of all, so then did you go from Winchester to Montgomery?
I took a job in Clarksville, Tennessee.
Yes.
And I had that job for about a day. And then I was approached by the Montgomery newspaper, which was much bigger, believe it or not. And so I went to Montgomery. I never actually wrote a story for the Leaf Chronicle.
Yeah.
So I ended up coming to the Advertiser in 97 or 98. And I covered Alabama State football. And I got kicked off campus because I reported on a practice they didn't want people to know about. And I thought I was going to get fired, and I got promoted instead. And I've been covering Auburn ever since the 98 season, which is a great season to be at Auburn because that's the season that Terry Bowden either quit or got fired, and all that went down. It was a trial by fire.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, let's okay. So at what point then, did online become as much or a consideration as the print product? I always mention your 2003 reporting about what we call Jetgate.
Right.
Was that also pretty much a print story?
Oh, strictly, yeah.
Wow, it just doesn't seem like it. But yeah, so 2003. So that was still print. When was it during your time with Montgomery that then it became you've got to get this online? We got to post this now.
We were very late to that party. I want to say that when I was a student at Kentucky, at the Kentucky Colonel, this would have been '97. We had a very forward-looking web group. We had a good website. We had a whole 3 or 4 guys that worked on that. So I was kind of thinking digital a little bit, even at that point.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, hey, I need to get this up as quickly as I can, but like thinking about how we can present it online.
Yeah.
I get to the advertiser, and our executive editor, who was an awesome lady, she died, unfortunately, several years ago. Her name was Paula Moore. Said, we will never, ever give away our product for free. Whatever you did at the student newspaper, that's a student newspaper, buddy. We're in the commercial business, and that ain't happening. I thought, all right.
With all due respect to Paula, cue laugh track.
Yeah, she laughed a lot. She died a long time ago. But
yeah.
The first time I can remember being really serious about let's get stuff up on digital as quickly as we can is probably about 2010. When the Cam Newton stuff was kind of coming down.
Right.
And it was hour by hour at one point. That was probably the first time. But we were kind of late to that party. Newspapers in particular, there were websites like the one that I work for now at AuburnSports.com. They were already.
And from your knowledge, because I still remember, I was at my aunt's house in Florida when Jetgate broke. Was that being reported online as soon as it was hitting? Was your stuff going online, or was it even still kind of slow down?
No, it wasn't going online. The only
from other sources.
No, I don't think so.
Wow.
Really, all they had at that point, I don't even think the blogs had picked up at AL.com. AL.com wasn't really a thing yet.
Right.
So Feinbaum was really the only place, and he was making like veiled references to this, that, and the other thing. He didn't really know exactly what was going on, or he didn't think it was going to break as quickly as it did.
See, I guess that's part of our memory. We somehow think things have been that way longer than they have.
That was a crazy story. Think about a story like that.
Now I don't think these students may not know that story, so give them a 30-second version if you can.
In 2003, Auburn did not play very well in football. No. They were supposed to be really good, and they weren't. And some of the AD and some other people surreptitiously courted, and they were going to hire the coach at Louisville.
Whose was?
Bobby Petrino.
Yes.
This is while the head coach at Auburn was gainfully employed and nobody told him anything. It just turns out that I am from Louisville. My wife's parents they're dead now, Louisville boosters. Mm-hmm. They had kind of tipped me off that some stuff was going down in Louisville involving Auburn. And I got that call at probably 10 a.m. that day. Mm-hmm. And by 8 o'clock that night, everything had happened. Petrino had capitulated. David Housel had capitulated. And for all of that to happen in one day is just awesome. Crazy. It never happens. And
we should point out that what happened with Auburn, they didn't have permission to talk to Petrino.
No, hell no.
They just flew up. I want to say from an NCAA perspective, so illegal. They just showed up and tried to
I don't know if it's illegal. It's just immoral.
I know. Immoral, unethical. I mean, probably against NCAA guidelines. I don't know if it's guidelines or just protocol. And so, and as a result of that, athletic director lost his job.
He did.
University president lost his job.
He did.
So that was just
some trustees ended up not staying on.
And Tuberville, who might well have been fired if they hadn't botched it, ended up staying.
He got 4 or 5 more years, right?
5 more years. The next year, Auburn went undefeated. It was a pretty fun time. It really was.
I don't know about that.
Entertaining from a news perspective.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
it was.
So anyway, and a quick thing on that, the idea of tracing planes. How did you do that? Because you traced the Auburn plane, didn't you? From Auburn to Louisville.
That hadn't really been done before.
Right.
And I'm trying to think of how we figured that out. We knew that they had flown on Lauder's jet out of Montgomery. And I just got the tail numbers. That was really kind of. I was working with Pat Forty. I don't know if you guys.
Can't be this easy. You're thinking.
It was easy. I talked to Pat Forty, who was kind of a mentor of mine. He was working in Louisville at the time. You guys probably know him with Yahoo Sports now. He's a national columnist. He's very good at what he does. Better than me, obviously. And I talked to him about. They were on this plane, and the plane went from Montgomery to an airport on Indiana, just right over the border with Kentucky. Basically suburban Louisville. And he thought, all right, man, we need to get those tail numbers, and that stuff's trackable. Yeah. I thought, well, let's do it. All right. And we tracked it. And it was just there for everybody to see.
And now tracking, everybody does it.
Well, you can't hardly do it anymore because
really?
Auburn used its legal muscles to block their planes. They block the tail numbers, although you cannot block what kind of a plane it is.
Right.
That's coming in and out of AUO, so I can usually track it if I need to, but not specifically to the tail number.
Okay.
We actually launched an investigation of the advertiser when they did that because I thought that was illegal.
Yeah.
I still feel like that's illegal.
Yeah.
Because the state's paying for that. Why would you have to hide it?
Right. It's a state plane. It's not a private plane.
Yeah. They made a compelling argument, and our lawyer at the advertiser just basically gave up on it.
Right. So anyway, all right. That story's still part of Auburn lore. Well, you did make a transition from the Montgomery Advertiser to Auburn Sports, and when and why did that happen?
That's a good question. There were two reasons why. Firstly, I'll start out with the most pressing issue, which was that newspapers were on the decline.
Yeah.
When I got in the 90s, the newsrooms were full of people. When I went to work at the Advertiser in 97 or 98, we probably had 35 reporters.
That room was full.
Full of people. And it was just like, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie The Paper or anything like that. Just people everywhere and phones ringing and people talking. And that's what I loved about journalism. That's what got me into it, really.
Yeah.
That and chasing the stories is just the funnest thing. And little by little, as readership dwindled off and the internet became such a big thing, it siphoned off a lot of that money from the newspapers. And the staffs kept getting cut. And I survived 7 rounds of layoffs at the Advertiser, but it got to a point where it wasn't fun anymore because we had lost so many guys.
Right.
I didn't feel like I had a sports team anymore. And they were putting so much pressure on us to do a billion things. Like, I used to just be the Auburn writer, but then I had to be a high school writer, had to do some Alabama because we were staffing.
Right.
So short. So I was scared I was going to lose my job, to be honest with you. Felt like I had to go find something. And also, we talked about this just a minute ago, that print was so slow to adopt this digital idea. Let's get stuff
Shot
up quickly.
themselves in the foot.
And the Advertiser just kept dragging its feet on that. And there was information. I knew I could get stuff faster than the Advertiser could propagate it. So I wanted to get into that digital first. I wanted to go to a company where we could do stuff like, hey, I've got an idea for a blog, and they would be able to say, okay, let's do it, instead of the Advertiser saying, well, we need to run that by the parent company. I wanted to be quick. I wanted to be able to pivot quickly, so to speak. And those two things happened with me going to AuburnSports.
Awesome.
Oh, it was awesome,
Now,
dude. I didn't have to worry about losing my job anymore. It was great.
Yeah, having a job. By this time, and what year was this?
2012.
By this time, at the Advertiser, were you doing video? Were you posting video, stuff like that?
A little bit. Mm-hmm. Not as much. I was one of the first reporters to really push that. But again, like I mentioned before, they were dragging their feet. They didn't really want video. Mm-hmm. They said they did, but I'm like, hey, we need an interface to upload this. You need to teach me how to edit. I need some software. And they were like, whoa, buddy.
Money.
No, we don't have any time or money for that. So, not really.
No. Okay, so now, but with Auburn Sports, and it seems like the so-called fan sites were on the cutting edge when it came to video, fan involvement. We talk about consumer-generated content, and really that's just fan message boards, fans writing, well, right, to an extent. But it seems like when you get to Auburn Sports, you think, okay, these guys are doing what needs to be done.
Yeah, you're talking about in 2012.
12, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the message board, I think in a lot of circles, message boards get a bad rap. Mm-hmm. And there's some crazy stuff that's said on message boards. But usually the crazy stuff you're seeing is like the craziest of the crazy at a crazy point. So like today, which is kind of a serene day in the Auburn world, there's just a lot of funny people saying funny things on the message board. Like not being mean.
No.
I love it. It's a very important part of my job. And I didn't realize that when I got in. Mm-hmm. How important the message board was to my continued ability to stay in this business. Because that's where a lot of people come and talk, and they want me to provide answers to their questions right there.
Well, it seems like, from what we know about newspapers were always so distant from their audience.
True.
They probably were
Absolutely.
suspicious of it, where you realize, yeah, that's what you're doing. You're interacting with your audience. What's wrong with that?
Well, it just felt right for me. I had a blog at the Advertiser. It was called the hottest Auburn blog on the net. It was the Habatten.
What was it?
Habatten.
I remember Habatten.
And there really wasn't a whole lot like
to
it.
Habatten.
Yeah, I know. It was Well, that was breaking down that wall you just kind of mentioned.
Exactly.
When I first started writing for newspapers, I would put my words in the paper. I wouldn't ever talk to anybody about that story. There was no medium to do it.
And that's kind of an arrogance that maybe newspapers let themselves keep.
I didn't even realize at the time because there was no other way.
Mm-hmm.
There was no medium for talking to people and getting true feedback unless they called you on the phone and called you an idiot or whatever, which, I am sometimes.
So anyway, all right. So now with AuburnSports, first a little side question here. What made you move into more of a management ownership phase, if I can ask that?
Well, that just kind of happened. I was working for a guy named Jeffrey Lee when I hired on, and Jeffrey had something happen to him on the message board that kind of soured his interest in staying with the site, and he wanted to leave. And I had the ability to pay I had to basically come to a financial terms to take over the site from him.
Wow.
He was the captain of the ship. He owned it. He sold it to me about 6 months in, and I was lonely. Because he was supposed to be my mentor. He was my friend. He was the guy that hired me. He was going to show me how to kind of do this. And then all of a sudden he was gone.
Hey, instant mentor.
Yeah, you become that captain real quick.
That's online, it's all instant. Wow.
So now I'm the captain. I've been the captain since right at the end of the 2012 season. And, you get used to it. I got some. Jeffrey actually came back.
I did notice that.
He's now our recruiting guy, and a guy named Brian does our team coverage, and I trust those guys with everything.
Brian Matthews is, he has spoken to this class before and other classes. Very much respect. Yeah, and he's an interesting take because he's someone whose training was not in journalism. He's almost someone who, kind of like a Bill Simmons, came from, can we say, from fandom to writing?
Yeah, I don't think he would take offense to that.
Yeah.
He was working for the state in environmental management and just kind of liked sports writing, and he liked Auburn. And when I first ran across him at a baseball game in 2001, I was like, "Who is this guy?" Because there was that arrogance.
Yeah.
I was like, "I've gone
you
to
don't have the degrees."
Yeah, exactly. Which I don't either, but don't tell anybody. But I'd been in the press boxes. I'd written stories.
Right.
I'm like, "Who is this guy? Internet? Are you kidding me? This guy lives in Montgomery, works for the state." But now, I mean, that's the way it started. I mean, he was right to do that.
And we tell students, obviously we have journalism majors who have the training, but anybody, whether journalism major or not, you need to show that passion about getting involved, doing the work, and getting there. Brian showed it. Other students have as well, and that's what does it.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever talked to Barrett Salih.
Yes.
Barrett is another one who's a lot younger than me, but he wanted to be a sports writer at Auburn, but there weren't any jobs. When you had to be at a newspaper or you didn't have an opportunity.
Yeah, he's about 2003 grad.
Yeah, right around there. And he went to Bleacher Report, I think it was, to start with. And I thought, oh, damn. Because at that time, I was like...
Bleacher Report. I know.
Oh, no.
I know. I wrote
Barrett.
Yeah, I always did those listicles. I wrote something for the Royal Radio. I did sports. It was like 10 reasons I hate Bleacher Report.
Yeah.
No, am I hiding it? I think Barrett saw it, but it wasn't nothing against
Barrett. And I thought, I feel bad for this kid having to go to Bleacher Report, but there was nothing I could do. I was at that newspaper at the time. You had to be with a newspaper, or else you didn't have a choice. But guess what? Barrett is way bigger than me now, makes more money than I do, is living the life because he earned every single thing he got.
Yep.
And good on him. Every time I see Barrett, by the way, I tell him how proud I am of him. Because he busted his butt.
But that's busted his butt. It's not like someone's going to walk into like you're going to be wandering around Jordan-Hare Stadium and someone from ESPN is going to say, "Oh my goodness, our sideline reporter is sick. Can you do that?" No.
That would never happen, yeah.
Never. You've got to start, work, show your passion, and that's how you get there.
You got to write. If you're going to write,
yes,
that skill translates to every part of your life. I mean, if you're going to write a story, whatever. If you're going to write a summary for your job, maybe you end up being in business. Being literate and being able to express yourself via the word and make sense and be grammatically correct is a skill that will help you the rest of your life.
Well, we always talk about, like earlier I was inferring that you as a writer needed to learn video. Goes the other way. Video folks need to be able to write so that they can be that
absolutely
multimedia person, but also, like you said, it translates so well into so many different pursuits. So that's part of what content generation is now, being able to do both.
Yeah, video's tough. Because for me, it's the second. Like, I was a writer for sure. Video wasn't even a thought at the time. Because that was for goofy TV people that are like, hello.
I know, with the great hair.
And wear lots of hair product, but now I don't do that.
Like Jeff Shearer. Oh,
but Jeff,
boom.
Jeff's such a great guy.
He is. I know. That's
does
why
he come in to your class and stuff?
He teaches in our program.
Okay.
He's this.
Y'all know Jeff.
This semester he's teaching sports media relations. Some of these folks might be in that class.
That's a class.
Yeah.
Sports media relations.
It's a CMJN class. Yeah. I guess he just closes the door and doesn't let anybody in.
Don't do that. Boom! Don't do that job, guys. Sports information is a thankless, boring job.
Well, I tell you what. In fact, we're just noticing none of us have heard from George Nunley. Whatever happened to George?
He's just in the middle of a big baseball.
I know. Anyway. So the writing and the video it's all part of content today.
Oh, podcasting. Mm-hmm. Are we going to talk about that too?
We can talk about it a little bit.
Wow, that is really blown up, and I still can't grasp it because I don't listen to podcasts. I don't either. Like when I drive up here today to come do this show with you, I listen to music.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to podcasts.
When I see, this is where I'm an even older fart. When someone tells me there's a podcast, I'm going, is there a transcript of it?
Yeah,
so I can read it. I don't. When I'm listening, I'm like, I don't. I read in blotches. I don't listen, but you can't listen in blotches.
That's right.
So yeah, but podcasting, and it's amazing because I know you guys listen to podcasts, and someone says, hey, there was a great podcast, and then you open it up and it's like 45 minutes, and you're going,
oh, that's too much.
God,
but I mean, I got to say this: I'm not hating on it because when we do them during the football season and basketball season, we get thousands, tens of thousands of people listen. I can't believe it. And I do another kind of show with my friend that runs the Ole Miss site, Neil McCready, who covered Auburn for years and years, and we just talk about life and stuff. It's not really sports as much, and we get like 30 or 40,000 people watch that. It's wonderful. It really benefits my bottom line. It helps feed my family. So thank you for listening if you guys listen to that. But I don't think that I would do that myself.
And why do you think podcasts? Is it because, podcasting is like radio. It's a passive medium. Has it become something that people listen to as background while they're doing other things?
I think so.
I guess I should ask them.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it.
Yeah.
But now it's almost like having your own radio station that's just catered to Auburn specifically. And when you listen to Feinbaum, Auburn's 1/14th of it, or 1/12th of it, whatever, because he likes to obsess over Auburn when bad things are happening. But it's just kind of like your own little channel where they just talk about Auburn. And I think that I'm kind of a weird dude, odd person. You might agree with that.
No, I think I'm just as odd as you are.
At least loquacious I am. And maybe they kind of say, hey, I dig the way Jay gives me the information instead of, today at practice, Bryce Brown was stroking the threes. I mean, it's a little more nuanced than that,
Anyway.
That's my thought.
But, all right. So, what do you feel is the future, then, of the written word? Let's get back to that because that's what we're talking about. In sports media.
Well, I think there's always going to be a place for that. I think Twitter is always going to require that. I dislike Twitter. And the instant that I am no longer doing this job, I will be off Twitter forever.
I love Twitter. You guys know that. I love Twitter.
It's the worst. It's just a haven for anger and passive-aggressive stuff.
Yeah.
Anyhow, you've always got to be able to, for a newspaper guy, it's great. But for me, I'm trying to get paid for my work. That's just free.
That's true.
And there's no Twitter paychecks, yo. There are paychecks from YouTube. And there are paychecks from podcasts, but there are no paychecks from Twitter. So you got to be able to express yourself that way. And I think there'll always be a need for stories at some level. When I first started, my stories were probably, I don't even know if you guys talk about column inches anymore. That's the way I think of a story being 16 inches, 18 inches. That's probably, 600 words.
Yeah.
They're getting shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
So now you got to get a lot in 8 inches or 300 words. And that is harder to do, not easier.
Yeah. No, I don't. Like you were saying, a lot of it is short. It's punchy. Again, to me, being a nerd, you open something up, you're like, well, we're through? Wait a minute. Where's the words here?
For guys like us, yeah.
Yeah, where it goes. But let's talk, though. The equivalent of the podcast is the long form.
Ooh.
And are you a long form fan?
Mm-hmm.
You're not?
I mean, maybe occasionally.
Right. I guess maybe long, well, and even, okay, first of all, you got your long form where, it's like, will it ever end?
Like 30 minutes reading time.
Yeah, and then you're like, trying to think of the last sports thing I read like that. I mean, we really digress if we start talking about Snowfall and the sports multimedia long forms that enter.
I don't know what that is.
You know, the New York Times report on the avalanche happened a couple of years ago. Well, anyway.
I'm not a mountain climber.
But we digress.
But do you have the Greatest American Sports Writing book?
Yeah.
You know, that gold one?
Yeah.
They need to read some of that, yo.
Yeah, we read that. We actually read that in sports
class.
reporting, in the writing class. And yeah, some of that stuff is amazing.
That would be long form now.
Right.
It was not long form at the time, a lot of it.
Right.
So that's how we've changed.
But, actually, you know what? If we want to talk about long form, and this could get a reaction out of you, one good example of what's good and what's not so good about long form is Tom Junode's Auburn softball story.
That just came out in ESPN
The one that just
magazine.
came out,
Well,
yeah.
That's just old news to me. It
But
bored me.
did you read? But his thing about his involvement with
Didn't like it.
Yeah, everyone I know was like, "Geez, Tom, take yourself out of it," and just where he was making this glorious speech about the Elysian fields of softball, where the rest of us are going. We're listening, but you're going to give us some information at some point, I hope.
ESPN magazine tends to be overwritten. I almost feel like it's there for that purpose. And that story was way overwritten. And he's bigger than I'll ever be. You could say, well, you just have sour grapes, JG. You're just some dude covering Auburn. But I didn't think much of that.
Hey, I guess Tom Junode, an ESPN writer, and us, we have 24 hours a day to live our lives. They take up 30 minutes of it speaking about, it wastes our time as much as it wastes theirs. So they need to have respect for that. That's just my thought.
I think sometimes you get sent to do a story. I had this happen to me myself. And it's not quite there.
Yeah.
And you still have to write it.
Okay, we're really going to get in trouble with this. Yeah, that's kind of the sense I got from that story. It's almost like, here it is, it's the end of the season, and ESPN says to him, whatever you've got, write it.
Just write it.
We're never going to get the resolution. We're never going to get the smoking gun. Here it is. Because it doesn't mention a lot of things that were discussed, and I want to talk about them on camera, individual situations. But instead it was just like, here's what I've got, goodbye.
And it was overwritten.
Yeah, and he had to overwrite to fill in the blank. I don't know.
It happens.
Anyway, all right. So as we're finishing, that's kind of all that I've got going on. I got mugging there.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to say that I haven't mentioned that you might have thought of?
Well, you got to write.
Yes.
I think a lot of people want to write and then they don't actually write, and there's no way to do it other than that. And you're going to suck when you start.
Yep.
You're going to be atrocious.
Oh man.
Dude, when I first wrote, the first stories I ever wrote, I was watching, seriously, the French Open. I wasn't writing for anybody. I was just writing for me.
Right, for practice.
This is back when Monica Seles played. It's like an oldie now, but I would just, on my own little computer, I just type it up.
Yeah.
And I wish I still had them because I can guarantee you they are so bad. Dude, the stories I wrote for the school newspaper, 96 and 97, oh my God, they're so bad.
Yeah.
I can't believe I subjected the students at University of Kentucky to that garbage.
But
I did.
I used to yell at my students about their writing. Then one summer I was taking care of my dad. He was fighting cancer and he beat it, but there was a dead time, so I went to the library and actually, to kill time, read stuff from my first year with the Jacksonville Journal. I have not yelled at my students since then because I was terrible. I was the king of partial quotes. The mayor said it was a, quote, good idea that will, quote, help people. And I'm like, isn't that the New York Times? But anyway, but you got to write to overcome that.
Look at it this way. When you read it and you know how bad it is, that means you've gotten better.
You've gotten better.
Or else you were still bad, you'd be like, that's pretty good right there.
I know. Look at me.
You got to write.
And you got to read, too. I mean, these guys. I mean,
oh, yeah, okay.
You have got to read. If you want to become a better writer, and you want to become a better writer, you've got to read. There's nothing around it. Learn to read, learn to enjoy the printed word. It's what we've got. It has served civilization for millennia.
Well, there's some good people to read here, too.
And there are.
Jeff Shear, who was a news TV guy for a long time, he's actually a really good writer.
He is.
Very clean.
And he cares about his writing, and that you can
he's
tell.
Just a good guy.
Yeah.
He's just a good human being. Let's see. But, Kevin Skarbinski, he doesn't write columns anymore. It sucks that he's not around as much. Philip Marshall, if you guys get a chance to read him.
Philip has a style.
He is so good at the declarative sentence, man. Always remember, declarative sentences, good idea. Get to the point and get on to the next sentence. Young writers tend to just 50-word sentences.
Yeah.
You're getting too much.
I'm trying to think of that. Personally, I enjoy Dan Wetzel. his ability to turn around a column in no time. Dan Wolken, kind of the same way. I don't know.
I mean, I know those guys, so
right.
Yeah.
And that gets in the way.
It does get in the way sometimes.
Yeah, and just notice what they're doing and notice what they're trying to do, and it's in the trying.
Well, Pat 42.
Yes, Pat. Pat is one of those who everybody thinks hates Auburn. So
I can tell you, as a friend of Pat 40, he does not hate Auburn.
So, yeah, and I'm the same way about Mark Schlabach.
I can tell you, as a friend of Mark Schlabach, he does not hate Auburn.
Yeah,
that is something that everybody holds on to here.
Oh yeah.
That Mark hates him because he's a UGA guy, but
right.
I know Mark. I don't think he has an agenda.
Anyway, all right. Well, I wish, like I said, we're doing this class online. I hope you guys realize, like I said, we're here at the softball field, sports background. I think that turned it all around for you guys. But I thank Jay for showing up. Matt Penland opened this up for us. We appreciate that. And you guys too. I'm sure Jay, I was calling you Matt. Jay speaks for everybody when he says, get involved in this stuff while you're in college. You got opportunities. If you want to do something and you've got the skills and you want to work, a lot of these guys can put you to work, correct?
Yeah, there's little things we can do here and there. Definitely.
And once you prove yourself.
Particularly video, because old geezers like myself, it doesn't come easily.
Right.
I have to kind of fight my way through Final Cut and all that stuff. And there's kids out there, I know I've seen them. It's just boom, 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 boom. They've grown up with it, and those skills are always transferable.
Good deal.
Stuff. Thanks for watching, though.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. And we'll do a good discussion post off of this. Thank you. All right.